God had made very clear all the way through the Old Testament, even when he gave Israel the pattern for the tabernacle and the temple, that he did not dwell in one geographical spot. Solomon acknowledged this in his prayer at the dedication of the temple. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have built? First Kings chapter 8 and verse 27. These men in the Old Testament recognized that the Creator is the living God, could not live in a building that had been made by him. Man lives in a universe that God has made. Why does man get the idea that he can build a building for God to live in? And I've talked about this before. It's because he wants to put him in a little box so he can come visit him whenever he wants to, not realize that God is there constantly for him to recognize and to worship him multiple times a day. Rick Warren is on a series talking about prayer and daily hope these days, and he points out that our clock was invented and to and that they would ring a bell. The first at 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 6 o'clock again each day, and that the Jews developed a habit of praying on each of those occasions. And you go into other countries, you go into Muslim countries, and they do they wake up with a prayer. They have a noon prayer and they have a 6 p.m. prayer. We should throughout the day we realize that God is with us. The first church building, the temple, basically God's tabernacle. God said, I've told you this, I don't know how many times, but the people saw the mountain, smoke coming from it, and God's presence up there, and fear came upon the people, and they asked Moses to put that they didn't want him dwelling amongst them and to put him in a tabernacle. It was the people's idea. Then they wanted him moved outside the congregation. And then, whenever David wanted to build him a temple, he said, "I never wanted to be put in a tabernacle in the first place. You put me in a tent, and that's not what I wanted." And Saul acknowledges he doesn't dwell in a temple. Now, yes, Isaiah saw him fill the temple on Lord's Day at the burial of Uzziah, but the first churches were not built for 280 some years after the first church. I think that is the hypocrisy that we have, is that we make these monoliths and say, "Come worship." We want to put God in this box. J. Vernon McGee points out that even though the first churches were built in that period of time, they were never meant to be worshipped in. That they were as a edifice to and dedicated to God, and were in the form of a cross, which made it impossible to have congregations in and to worship, like the great cathedral in Paris. And so we today we have these ideas, but really groups of 12 or smaller is where God can really work. People can't hide. You have a church of 1,200 people, people are going to hide. That's one of the things I used to, whenever I was evangelizing, everybody I asked, they went to the biggest church in town, because I couldn't nobody knew whether they went there or not. You can hide. So that ends this